Okay, welcome everybody to another tournament report style video today. I do these every so often when I have a big tournament. It's meant to be sort of a podcasty type thing where I just chat about the tournament and how it went and the deck I played. Actually had a double header this past weekend. So on the Saturday, travelled over to London to play in the Axion Now Mega Modern. So these are a big series of events in the UK. There's 4 or 5 a year, and the top 8 of each one advance to the Invitational, which usually, and it's been confirmed this year, will have a Pro Tour slot for the winner. I've played in the last 2. They're really, really good. So anyone in the UK or indeed from elsewhere, I would definitely encourage you to go along, try and go to one of those. So that was the first one, and then the Sunday I travelled again different area to go and play an RCQ, which is standard at the moment. So I went and played some standard, so I'm going to go over that one as well. So for modern, I was on Eldrazi Tron, myself and others, sort of in our quote-unquote team, decided to rep this. It's similar vibe to the red-green Eldrazi, but using slightly different way to ramp. We're using the Tron lands instead of things like Utopia Sprawl. So part of it is because I think the upside of potentially being able to have all of your lands tapped for 2 mana is really, really good. And in testing it, I've been doing well. I've been 4-1ing most leagues on Modo. If anyone's interested to see some gameplay, then I think my last video was with this deck, so you can go and check that out on the channel. So this is the list. Essentially, we decided to play 3 of each Tron land because we were getting them really easily with maps and microspawns. So we weren't. It's not as much a turn 3 Tron, although it's obviously nice when that happens. But we sacrificed that potential to add in a couple of copies of Urza's Saga. So this proved really good actually. So it's able to, if you need to play it on turn 1, because you need to go and get a silver bullet like Soul Guide Lantern or Pithing Needle out of the sideboard, Haywire Might, anything like that, you can. And in this deck, turn 1 Saga does not always forego the opportunity to make constructs. So you're able to go Saga and then Labyrinth Imprint, and then you have the requisite mana to make those. What else did we have? So we had all the Stars and Spheres as our main way of making green mana. Playing 4 Rumble, 4 Microspawn, Karns, all the normal good stuff, and then we chose to play Emrakul in the big finisher slot rather than something like Ulamog. So the event went well. We got up in the morning very early to travel to London. We drove. The event was at Darksphere, which is the local gaming store in, I think it's Shepherd's Bush in London. Really nice store. It's in a shopping mall, easy to park. There's parking there if anyone's planning on going. Really big store. There was 186 of us playing, I think, in the Mega Modern. So a big tournament, especially for here in the UK. I think that's probably the biggest we've had for a long time. Went, grabbed some coffee on the way as usual, got there, and settled down for the player meeting. Unfortunately, Mei Li was down. It was the same weekend as the Pro Tour. I think Mei Li had been having some issues, so in some instances had to go back to the quote-unquote good old days of paper match slips and such, but did seem to work itself out later on in the day. So the tournament was 8 rounds. 8 long modern rounds. Sat down round 1 and was paired against Affinity, which was essentially a very sort of turbo to Kappa Cannoneer deck. Kind of got run over in 2 quick games. Lost the die roll. Opponent had a very swift Cannoneer out, and then just went sort of artifact, thought mana to attack you for a whole bunch, and just couldn't really do much. And then game 2 sort of mulliganed to a fairly decent No, sorry, this was a slight mistake there. So I mulliganed to 5 in game 1. And then, as I say, just got kind of run over. And then game 2, I made the classic error of I had mulliganed to 5 in game 1. I lost. Didn't want to mulligan in game 2. And then I kind of kept a ropey 7, which didn't really do too much until trying to cast Khan on turn 3 or 4. And yeah, I just, the Khan kind of got dealt with, and then I just had nothing really going on quick enough, and again was just beaten down. So a big learning point there. The deck mulligans fairly well, and I think after playing more reps with it, I did sort of notice that. But it's just a classic. Don't let the mulligan to 5 in game 1 influence your mulligan decisions too much in games 2 and 3. So yeah, a loss to affinity, but then did somewhat better. So battled back to 4-1, playing against a couple of Murktide gamers. So blue-black frog / Murktide / Oculus. The deck feels really good there. We're just doing some broken things, and turn 1 Urza Saga came in certainly in one of the matches. You're just able to go turn 1 Saga, turn 2 Labyrinth Imprint, make just sort of not letting them use any of their mana on counter spells. You're not playing anything. Make a construct, go and get Soul Guide Lantern for their Oculus, and yeah, just go from there. So that was really, really good. You have Kozilek's Command as an instant speed way to sort of bait out counter spells, whatever. Game 1 especially, they really struggle to deal with the cast triggers. So you put a Sowing Mica Spawn or a Devourer on the stack, or an Emrakul. They might counter the creature itself, but yeah, seem to do very, very well there. Notably, the sideboard, we had 3 Thought-Knot Seer, 3 Dismember. They came in pretty much every matchup, so it was like a package of stuff to bring in to let us just have a bit of a lower curve, especially when people are trying to disrupt our lands. And often people take out removal, so when the Fatal Pushes come out, Thought-Knot Seers come in, and then you're able to just go from there. Another one that managed to get the win over was Jeskai Energy. Blue pretty much just splashing for, I don't think I saw Mockingbird, but I think I definitely saw Consigns in the board. All Is Dust was an all-star there, and All Is Dust is our sweeper of choice over the Kozilek's Return in red-green. So, and we had an interesting slot here where this came up really well because we got to 7 mana. The opponent had a huge board, well, a reasonable sized board. We were on quite a high life total, but they did have a flipped Ajani and a Goblin Bombardment. So All Is Dust was able to clear up the Bombardment and the Ajani. Obviously, the opponent pinged us with a load of bombardment triggers before they had sacrificed their creatures, but yeah, it did clear up the Ajani and Bombardment, whereas the Kozilek's Return would not have. So that was really nice. So yeah, played that one. Also beat along the way Necro Dominance. Not too hard a matchup, it seemed. Doughty Voidwalker gave us a little bit of aggro, but Emrakul the Promised End, if you're able to take your opponent's turn while they have a Necro Dominance in play, you just draw their entire, draw their life total and they lose the game. Definitely do want Dismembers if you see Doughty Voidwalker in that matchup, and they probably bring in things like Break the Ice as well, but that's where having things like Thought-Knot Seer really came in handy. Not too much else to say on that one, I don't think. I think something came up where I think I was at 1 life. The opponent had but then to protect against things like Bowmasters, I fetched Haywire Might with Khan, and then opponent went to Sign in Blood Me, which is draw 2, lose 2, and I was able to just Haywire Might, exile our own, I think it was a star or a map or something, gain 2 life and live. So yeah, when you're at these low type totals, sometimes you think about that one. Then I was 4-1, looking, battled back, and then had 3 real rough rounds. So played 2 Eldrazi matches next. So it was red-green, Eldrazi both times. Managed to take a game in one of them, just with a fast Khan, but actually the matchup felt pretty rough. We thought it was going to be reasonable going in because we have the ability we have more Khans, and we're able to potentially get there quicker, but Mycospawn proved to be the one. Whereas we all is, we don't necessarily have more useless cards in the matchup, but all is Dust Devourer don't do anything, but that is the case for them as well. But it was Mycospawn that just proved to be really, really good. We struggled to get Saga going. They're more consistent at Mycospawning on turn 2 or 3. Notably did lose the die roll each time, and Mycospawn on the players just, it seems to affect us a lot more because we're trying to assemble a lot of lands that make 2 mana, whereas they can sometimes get away with it. I had an interesting one. My opponent went turn 1 Temple go. I go turn 1 Mine Map. The opponent then goes untap, play Forest, play Rumble, and then hit something. I don't think, it's just a normal land or an Emrakul or something. Nothing that was going to change it next turn. So I untap and I have the option. So the opponent's got Temple, Forest, and a Spawn. I untap and I have the option to either go Power Plant and then map for the Tron piece, and I think I had the ability. I had Kozilek's Command in hand, so I could go map Tron piece, get the Tron piece, complete Tron, turn 3, Kozilek's Command, make a huge Kozilek's Command, make loads of mana, scry and look for Emrakul or something. Or I could go Temple, and Kozilek's Command for 1, exile the Spawn, make my own Spawn. I suppose I could have gone Tron piece, exile the Spawn as well because it's CMZ 0 and just drawn. And my thinking was, I don't want my opponent Mycospawning me on turn 3. So they had 4 mana, so the way they would be able to Mycospawn, we didn't know they'd have to both have Mycospawn and a Soul Land in their hand, so either Temple or a Labyrinth and something to put under it. So it's an interesting point. I went for just the highest upside. I played my Tron land and passed, and then lo and behold, the opponent had the Eldrazi Temple, kicked Mycospawn, and then I just lost the game pretty much on the spot. I'm still not sure. I think I'm happy forcing them to have it there. If I go Tron land or Temple, exile your Spawn, draw a card, Kozilek's Command was kind of my only gas as well. So, my thinking was they'd just do it down the way anyway. So make them have it, and then I can go Tron. Even if they Mycospawn me the next turn, I can still make 5 Spawn, look for Emrakul, look for Khan, what have you. So let me know if you'd have done anything different there, but that's the line I went for. But yeah, that happened game 1, and then that was over. And then other games got a lot more grindy, but did end up losing both, and Mycospawn was a key part of that. And then last round, playing for prizes, played against Breach. Finally played against that. Game 1 had a very fast Khan, just sort of took over the game and won. At some point, fetched Engineered Explosives, cleared up their entire board, which wasn't really doing anything anyway. But and they couldn't really get out of it. But then did lose games 2 and 3. So game 2 was the classic. I think I kept a hand with Stonebrained all of their. I think I went turn 1 Stonebrain with Labyrinth, got rid of all of their Underworld Breaches, and then 2 turns later, I just didn't kind of didn't find anything else, and I was just beaten to death by 7/7 constructs. And then game 3, made a few errors. I think I played out a Saga as a land, but the opponent was able to Saga, get Haywire Might, exile our Saga. I think there was a turn where I chose to develop a Mycospawn, exile their land, because they were stuck on one land for a long time, and I just didn't consider that they'd been sandbagging. I think I had an option to go for something else. It wasn't Karn, because obviously I would have just slammed Karn. I think I could have held up Command or something to exile load from their graveyard, but I slammed Mycospawn, and then they'd been sandbagging Ambers and Mox, and just went Mox, play the Breach, play the Grinding Station, go off. So yeah, kind of just got there. So a bit disappointing to go from 4-1 into 4-4, but I think the deck's good. There was a lot of, so in terms of the meta here in the UK for this tournament, there seemed to be a lot of black-white, a fair amount of Boros, and then a fair amount of like the Eldrazi deck. Titan ended up doing quite well. There was some Titan at the top tables, but in playing games before the tournament, we found that this deck is very, very good into black-white. So that's kind of the opponents we wanted to play against. So yeah, I think there's pluses and minuses to this deck over the Eldrazi. I think we decided it's probably made the matchups that are sort of good better, but we're a dog in the mirror. So gonna consider what we want to do for Utrecht. But yeah, so that was my tournament. But a great tournament all round. You know, it was really fun. And Axion do put on really, really good tournaments. So yeah, that went well. Got home yeah, it was about, I think it was 11, half 11 by the time I got home. Ready, fortunately I got all my stuff ready for the next day, where we went and played some Standard. So I went to Worcester, to Toys and Games there, to play some Standard, and this was my deck of choice. Just checking you can see all of the sideboard here. So I played Blue-White Oculus, mostly because I enjoy this style of Magic, and I had the Oculuses for yeah, just had those in my collection, so getting a lot of the other bits wasn't too difficult. Had to borrow a few cards, but so the idea of this is to surveil or otherwise dump an Oculus into the graveyard, and then you have Helping Hand or Recommission to put it back in. This list is pretty much, there was someone that did very well in a big tournament recently. I can't remember their name. I'll put it in the description below. The only thing was I didn't have Elspeth's Smite. I had to make a few other changes. So Elspeth's Smite was replaced with another bounce spell, and another Mentor, and a Loran in the sideboard. And I also didn't have the most recent bounce spell, which is unsummon but can also do vehicle, so I played it into the floodboard and a unsummoned in the main instead of those. But yeah, the tournament went well. I lost round 1 to green, sorry, it was mono red mice, so that's one where the Elspeth Smite would have come in, but the bounce spells can also be good, and temporary lockdown's very good as well. So yeah, lost to there, then won 3 on the bounce. I beat another mice deck with a very quick Oculus. I had some pretty nutty draws in that one. I think I was able to go like turn 2, dump an Oculus into the graveyard with a Surveil land and instantly re-summon it, and then found a really timely lockdown as well. And then so I beat that. I beat a new artifact deck with the synthesizers and a load of the new affinity cards from the new set. The bounce spells were really good there against, they just couldn't quite get the synthesizers going as we were able to bounce their stuff. Then what else did I play against in the Swiss? So that was, yeah, lost to mice, beat affinity mice, and then then played against Boros, aggressive sort of burn prowess deck, and again just able to kind of bounce their prowess creatures after they'd been targeting them with things like Monstrous Rage, and then slam Oculus, and then they can't really attack through that. Did get got by Boros Charm from 4 life, but yeah, after that was on the play and was just able to land a quick Oculus. and go from there. Notably, we have Monastery Mentor, which I brought in quite a lot instead of Djinns or Oculus, just because Monastery Mentor is a threat that doesn't use the graveyard and people are bringing in Rest in Peace and stuff against you. Then played against Mono White. So unfortunately, the tournament went in such a way that I was 3-1, but IDs, I was paired down, and there were a few draws, so it meant I couldn't ID. So had to play. Obviously, in tournament magic, some of the time it is, you want to play as little magic as possible. But did play. Won game 1 on the back of my opponent missing some lands and me making a couple of very quick Oculus, but then got ground out in game 2, and we had very little time for game 3 because the mono white deck does take a long time to win. So game 3, I think I ended up losing in turns to just a load of tokens, but fortunately it was such that I made top 8. I was the highest seeded 3-2, so I crept in at 8th place into the top 8. So went on to there, played the quarterfinals against Esper Pixie. Had some pretty good draws in game 1. Did our thing, put some Oculuses into the graveyard, started manifesting Dread, and game 2 I lost. My opponent only ever found 2 lands, but was able to go Pixie into Pixie, start doing the black one that makes you lose life and discard, and I just kind of got run over there. And then game 3 I mulled to 5 and my opponent mulled to 4, and I kept a very good hand of Oculus, Charter Course, 2 lands, and a reanimation spell, which is obviously really, really good. Kind of loses to a Spell Pierce or a Rest in Peace or something, but I thought, mull to 5, just have to go for it, and that was just good enough. Pretty quick win there. Advanced to the semis, where my opponent was also on Pixie. I feel like that's quite a good matchup for us. Won game 1 off the back of, again, just making a quick Oculus. Lost game 2 to a load of the Flyers, and then game 3 went on a long time. I thought I didn't really have anything going on quite early. I kind of kept a hand and then drew some lands, but then I top decked. I kept 2 helping hands, and I top decked a Founding the Third Path. So went Founding the Third Path on turn 4, just straight to chapter 2. Milled 4 cards, 2 of them were Oculuses, and I dumped 2 Oculus onto the field on turn 4, and I was looking pretty good. But then my opponent goes Mockingbird, copy your Oculus, and I kind of stalled for a long, long time. I didn't find any removal for quite a while. And then we got into this weird state where my opponent played a load of creatures. I had a load of manifests, but they had some manifests as well. And I was deciding whether to swing, and I eventually decided against it. I think I got my opponent down to 5, and I thought, well, I'm making 2 manifests a turn, my opponent is making 1. I'm just going to try and grind them out. But they kind of found the Unholy Annex, which was able to make a 6/6 and then start gaining them life. And I eventually milled out to my Oculus. So there are a couple of points there where I think I should have been more aggressive in attacking, is one. I think my knowledge of the standard format isn't amazing, so not thinking about that they could potentially find a couple of things. Not thinking that they could find the annex, and also not thinking that they're much more likely to have creatures under their manifests, because they started just putting more flyers onto the field and stuff. And also I flipped up a Hearty Djinn, which was a lethal attacker, whereas my only out would have been to swing with all my manifests. My opponent couldn't block enough of them, so I could have hoped that they didn't block the one that was a Hearty Djinn, and then you're able to just flip it up. It doesn't even use a sack, you flip it up, whatever. So I did have an out, I just didn't see it. I flipped it up thinking, it's another flyer, but by then they had enough flyers that they could block it anyway, so I should have just kept it face down and hope they didn't block that one and get through. So I did mill out. And then unfortunately there was a prize split where the my opponent did manage to get the invitation in the finals. But again, a very good event. Really enjoyed it, and I'm really happy to have done well with the deck, especially since I haven't played much standard. I must go back to it, but see if I have any more RCQs to play. But yeah, thanks if you made it this far. Just some ramblings. I guess I'll just touch on the sort of metagame at my local RCQ. So it was quite a lot of mice. People seem to like the deck because I think it's quite cheap, and also other sort of red variants, aggressive things like burn and stuff. There was a couple of pixies. There was quite a lot of pixie as well, because I think that's quite cheap. Really good deck. I think I was the only Oculus player. There was none of the kind of. It was the same weekend as the Pro Tour, so there was someone playing Golgari Graveyard. I think they got a draw at some point, which kind of ruined their day. There was a mono white, my opponent in the last round of Swiss, who did make the top 8 as well, on a 3-0-2 record. And so yeah, if you're going to play that deck, do consider the fact that your games are going to be really long. And what else was there? Yeah, there was no things like Overlords, which is just really expensive. So if you're playing a local deck, I wouldn't imagine you'd see much of that. But yeah, your experience may vary. But yeah, thanks for everyone for watching. If you did get this far, thank you very much. Please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. I think I'm going to be playing a lot of Modern in the next couple of weeks, getting ready for my trip to Utrecht in the Netherlands, which is like a GP style thing, so excited to play that. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers.